Time now for Niner Talk Central. Here's DeSimone and Turron Davenport.
All right, here you go. Another edition of Niner Talk Central. DeSimone of Bleacher Report, Turron Davenport, Bay Sportsnet, coming to you live from 49ers camp, Santa Clara, California, Pennsylvania. My PA ropes. But yeah, man, I'm here at camp, and I'm gonna prematurely excuse the airplanes and the construction that you hear in the background. You know what that construction is. That's progress that you hear. Levi Stadium going up. Dylan, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that stuff, man. It reminds me like I'm there myself. Not to mention,
Yeah,
our
man.
fans are going to appreciate that.
Yes, sir. The sounds of progress.
Exactly. And so you have been there for a couple days. How's it looking? What have you seen? Anything that's kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Harbaugh in the press conference today, he talked about the different things that the franchise has given him and how different it looks from when he first got here. And I could attest to that too. Everything has been turned around. Where there used to be fan bleachers, you got the weight room, and the weight facility is crazy. It's crazy. I wanted to go in there and work out myself. But then not to mention, you got the scoreboard and just how everything's laid out. The cafeteria is great, man. I had nice mango tilapia yesterday. And, hey, look, I can't complain, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, we've been hearing a lot from camp, and any of the battles, we've been going over the battles. The ones that I've been curious in is basically what's going on at tight end. Uh and I think that you were pretty high on Vance McDonald. Did you get a chance to see him?
Let me tell you something. I'm coming out of this even higher on it. This guy, if you do fantasy football, is somebody I would definitely look into. They had a whole segment of the red zone practice, and they were looking to get the ball to him. They have him go in motion and release to the flat. They do a lot of different things to get him the ball. They were working him on the seam route, and he was really able to position himself. He's a guy that when that ball hits his hands, it makes zero noise. It's just like he has pillows for hands, man. I'm so impressed with him, and he's able to move. And actually, Kaepernick, I spoke to Kaepernick, and he said that he's a guy that will help the red zone offense. So coming out of this, yeah, he's somebody that really stood out, and I like him a lot. But then not to mention, you talk about some of the quarterbacks. B.J. Daniels, man, the ball jumps off of his arm pretty well. So he's somebody that impressed me. Lockett and Jenkins definitely did a good job. Jenkins is somebody that got a lot of targets. They want to go to him early and often, and it's clear that they are challenging him to step up and prove the first-round status of last year.
Yeah, I had a feeling something like that was going to happen. It's time to kind of step up and take the job, and the only way they're going to do that is they're just going to keep working him, and it makes a lot of sense. They want him to be the guy, but I mean, if somebody else is more ready, somebody that I think, I've alluded to Kyle Williams being the guy possibly. I think it would be bad to force him in something that he wasn't ready for.
I don't think that that's what they're doing, though. I think that they're making sure that he gets every opportunity to land the job. Kyle Williams is somebody that will probably be one of the starters. I think that he is, in fact, a better receiver, a more established receiver than A.J. Jenkins. But remember, you're not always going to only have two guys on the field. So what happens? You bring a receiver in. You look at what the Giants did with Ruben Randall, Victor Cruz, and Hakeem Nicks. Nicks stays on the outside, not Bowman, but Anquan Bolden role at the Z. Victor Cruz bumps inside. Hey, look, who's similar to him? Kyle Williams. And then you got Ruben Randall coming in at the X. So it's all right if he's not the starter, and Kyle Williams proves that he's a better starter on the outside, hey, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure the best players get on the field, and I want Kaepernick to get every opportunity to prove that last year was no fluke and to show that he continued to improve.
Exactly, I agree. I just want to see fresh legs and big plays. That's about it. I think I'll be
Yeah.
set. Today we're gonna have Cam Inman from the San Jose Mercury News, the 49ers beat writer, come and talk to us about what's going on at camp, and we also have Roto expert scout Jayson Braddock coming to talk to us. Really excited to talk to those two guys today because of their knowledge collectively. Cam having the first person experience with the team, has covered the team for years, and Jayson knows our guys going back to their college and high school days. So they're going to have some great insight for us today.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. So we're going to go ahead and go to a break, and when we come back, we'll have Cam Inman. All right, so we're back on. We got Cam Inman. He's one of the beat writers for the 49ers. Cam, what's up, man?
Having a good day. Getting ready to see a little football tomorrow.
Yes, sir. I'm with you. Dylan, you there?
Yeah, I'm here at Cam. So how did training camp look today?
Today at training camp, we didn't really get to see much other than guys walking out. There was a duck on the field, and that was pretty much the highlight of it. But Jim Harbaugh came in and tried to sell us how this preseason opener is going to be better than all preseason openers because there's competition at every spot. And I don't exactly see that because I only see competition at a couple spots, and that's going to be your wide receiver, your cornerback, your safety, and maybe your number 2 quarterback. Today that was kind of probably the bigger news is that he didn't say Colt McCoy is the outright number 2 like he's been first set in June and kind of stuck to that at the start of camp. And now that they're getting into the competition, he wants to make sure Tolzien knows he has a chance. And honestly, the way they've looked on the field this camp, Scott Tolzien and Colt McCoy, they don't look too much different. And it will be interesting to watch how that unfolds over the next 4 games.
That stood out to me too. I was intrigued by just him saying that Colt wasn't the standout backup guy. He wasn't clearly that guy, and that Tolzien is somebody that he's looking to come in and compete, not only to make the team, but as you said, to have some type of impact. So I thought that was pretty interesting what he said. And B.J. Daniels, what are your thoughts on him? I like the way the ball comes off his arm. Seems like he has a very live arm, and he's a versatile guy that can return punts and things like that. What do you think about B.J. Daniels?
I think B.J. Daniels' best shot to make this team is on the practice squad. I don't see him making this roster, and I know some guys feel differently, but I don't see him being used that much at quarterback where they'd be sold that he's a number 3 quarterback option. And I know they've tried him out as a running back, as a receiver, as a returner, and he's okay, but he's not that good at him. And I don't think he's making this roster. I think they like Tolzien a lot more than him as a number 3 option if Tolzien doesn't beat out McCoy at number 2. Or here's another facet. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is supposedly the quarterback whisperer, so what if the number 2 or 3 quarterbacks aren't on the roster and he sees there's somebody out there in the league that he likes and has known that might want to come in? I don't know who that might be, but I'm just throwing that out there. You never know.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even look at it that way.
Yeah, a lot of people have liked B.J. Daniels to kind of come in and possibly be the Swiss Army knife, which would give him a lot of value for that roster spot, especially if we're expecting to have Kaepernick play 16 games. I mean, as the 3rd quarterback, you don't think they even roll the dice on a all-purpose guy like him?
Well, like I said, he better be good at the other purposes.
Right.
Otherwise, why are you keeping an average guy around? And he seems like he's doing all right. He has a good work ethic, but he hasn't wowed me at all at quarterback or at any of the other positions. I think people, the quarterback is such a hot button topic, and especially with the 49ers, everybody wants to know who's the next great quarterback. But keep in mind, he's a 7th round draft pick. They have 11-man draft class. Not all these guys are going to make it. Half of them aren't going to make the team. Probably 4 of them are going to start on a non-football injury or pup list. So it's going to be hard to make this team. You're not going to have 7th round quarterbacks making a Super Bowl contending roster.
It's a great point. That is a great point. Now, as far as other backup spots, because yeah, you were saying that most of the positions are locked in. We've known that for the 49ers for the most part. But getting on the defensive side of the ball, do you see Corey Lemonwood possibly challenging Paris Harrelson for time?
No, Paris is locked in. They love Paris. He's great against the run. They really missed him last year, I think, in that rotation at outside linebacker. No chance. I think for Corey Lemonnier to make the team, which he should as a third-round draft pick, but I was kind of like handicapping the roster the other day, just kind of going, who could it come down to with him, and how many guys are going to commit at a linebacker position? And I did a story today on Nick Moody, who's an inside linebacker, and he looked really good to me in camp, but he's third string on the depth chart right now behind Michael Wilhoit and Nate Super, behind Willis and Bowman. But Moody's really opened eyes to me, and he's going to win a roster spot, most likely on special teams. So can Lemonnier play special teams also, or is he such a developmental guy? It comes down to how much roster space are they going to have for a young kid. And third round might be a cutoff for a Super Bowl contending roster, especially if you have Paris, Alden, and Ahmad Brooks, who they went with, a couple of years ago as a three-man outside linebackers, and it's just, I'm not sure he gets on this team.
Wow, that'll be interesting. So the wide receiver position is another one. That's one that I really took an interest in while I've been out here. As you saw yesterday, A.J. Jenkins, he worked out pretty well. He was targeted a lot, but Ricardo Lockett is a guy that stepped up, and he did a good job on a couple of deep balls. One from, I think it was from McCoy, the 30-yarder. He high pointed it over Terrell Brown. What are your thoughts about the receiver position, and specifically that X guy, the one that's going to stretch the field?
They want AJ to do it.
Yeah.
And he's not. He needs to have a big exhibition season, I think, because he's been inconsistent on the practice field. He'll have a couple of good catches, a couple of good days, a couple of bad days, and that's kind of been his MO, I think, over the last year. Is they need him to be consistent. And which AJ Jenkins are you getting? Is he going to put in all the hard work and do what you need to develop a relationship where Kaepernick can trust him? Because we already know Lockett has Kaepernick's trust. They're sidekicks and best pals.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in this camp, Lockett's running third string, fourth string stuff. He's getting a few reps with the earlier one, but for the most part, that first string is Bolden, maybe Marlon Moore, A.J. Jenkins, throw some Chad Hall in there, and then Lockett's been left with the dregs of the offense. And he hadn't done anything this camp, in my opinion, until yesterday when he had a few big catches. And after that 30-yard catch that he had from McCoy against Terrell Brown, he went and celebrated it with Kyle Williams like it was a big touchdown in a game. This was a non-padded practice.
Yeah,
and it was a good catch, but man, you gotta tone it down, especially when you're down the bottom of the depth chart, and show that's just commonplace for you to make catches like that. There's no reason to celebrate it.
Yeah, no, that's true. One thing with Jenkins I really liked is they seem to work that six route, that dig with him, and I like the way that he was able to catch the ball in traffic. He did have 2 drops yesterday. The second one was more or less, it seemed like he just was trying to run before he caught the ball. But with him, one thing I noticed is that he has to let the last play just disappear in his memory, because after he had that drop in the team period, it seemed like he carried it over to the next play where he was supposed to block, and he was very nonchalant about that. And listen, you got to be a complete receiver in this offense, especially as much as they run the ball. So I'm hoping that Jenkins can win the spot.
Yeah, and we talked to him a couple of days ago, and just to gauge where he's at, and he's always been okay in talking with us. He hasn't been defiant or rude or anything like that. But we were asking, one of the questions was what his goals were going to be for the exhibition season, and he said, I have no goals. And somebody might read that in a quote and just say, holy crap, what's the matter with this kid? Everybody needs to have goals. But I think it's just one of those things where first, his goal needs to be to catch a ball, because he didn't catch any during the regular season last year. So, I'm sure his goals are just to show that he's progressed. And, how are you going to measure that? It's not going to be necessarily with numbers, but he's going to get a lot of reps. He needs to get a lot of reps. And that's what Harbaugh keeps, saying. Jim's the last week has said that A.J. Jenkins needs to get on the field a lot more. He hasn't been on enough. And it's not as supportive of a stance as it was a year ago when Jim stormed into the media tent and said that the scribes and pundits and so-called experts didn't know anything because A.J. Jenkins is going to be an outstanding football player. I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, it's interesting that the subtle backpedal. I think he's going to work out. But you have Kyle Williams there, too, and he's somebody that I think really could step up. And like I asked Kaepernick yesterday about being the matchup nightmare from the slot. I mean, he's somebody, Dylan, I know you're very high on, and he's somebody I think that could step up. What have you seen from Kyle Williams? I know he's been out a lot of camp, but what are some things you saw from him that stood out to you just over his time being here?
Well, I think Kyle's is the other starter in my mind. I think it's Bolden and Kyle Williams, and they may rotate AJ or maybe a Marlon Moore or Chet Hall. Like once we get into the regular season, I don't know if Chet Hall makes it, but I think Kyle's a big part of that offense. Kaepernick and him are very tight. He was Kaepernick's guy, 2 years ago when Alex was here. Kyle and Kaepernick, they would work out all the time together, and you saw some of that chemistry during the regular season when Kaepernick came aboard. But then, one start in, and Kyle goes down with an ACL, and it really, Kyle, they were both really disappointed because they had worked on that chemistry. And that's as long as Kyle's healthy, I think you're going to see that again. But staying healthy is going to be a problem because he does get hurt, and because he hustles, he plays hard, so he doesn't dog it out there.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Dylan yesterday, and he reminds me of the character from the Pixar movie. What do they call him? Dash, because his feet move so fast, man. But I like him a lot, man. He's a high motor guy, and he has one speed, it seems like, and that's full speed.
Now, Cam, did you happen to see Kyle? I mean, because most of his film, a lot of his stuff, you would have to go look at Arizona State when he got drafted by Balky in 2010. Do you remember the kind of player he was coming out?
No. It's too bad. Every time around the draft or around this time of year, I always wish I saw more college film on guys. I was just talking about this the other day because you hear so much about it once you get in the NFL. And, when we're on the NFL beat on Saturdays, it's usually a travel day. And we don't have much time to watch college football because we're on our way to the NFL stadium. Or if we're home, it's an off day with the family. So, no, I didn't see enough of him. But I've seen enough of him out of practices and games over the last few years. That's why I'm when he had the problem in the NFC Championship game, I didn't think that they were going to cut him because of it. For one, they'll give a guy a second chance. And two, I think they like what he can bring as a spot receiver. And he's got some speed, I like his attitude.
Yeah, he's very, very fast. He's very explosive. I think the fact that kind of what they've built is, I think you're going to see Colin and Kyle be very complementary in nature. I mean, Kyle had run a 4.3. He was running around as fast as Mike Wallace was coming into the league, and and Kaepernick has the big arm. So I think that's going to kind of help you. You talked about their chemistry. I think their strengths as players is going to be very complementary.
Yeah, definitely. And when you bring up the strength of the arm, I think Kyle will provide some of that deep threat, and Vernon Davis will try to get in the deep threat. If Vernon Davis can break free, pass guys after 10 yards, he's going to be a great asset. But we didn't see much of that in the regular season until we got to Atlanta, basically, and then he kind of saw him take off too.
Right. So yeah, another thing I wanted to look at just on the at the safety position. What have you seen from Eric Reed? Do you feel that he's somebody that will actually take over the job from Craig Dahl?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dahl is he's an insurance caretaker of the position right now until Reed's up to speed. You're not going to find out if Reed's necessarily ready until he puts some licks on guys in that position game because he's not doing that in practices for obvious reasons. But the best thing that I thought Deshaun Golden brought to that secondary was a physical, intimidating presence. And I know
Right.
Warner got fit in him, but Golston wasn't out there making interceptions and picking things off like crazy. So, and I don't know if Eric Reed's that type of player that's going to do that either. So if Eric Reed is the physical presence, then that's what we're going to find out in the exhibition season. Because I think they want to see him do that. And they want to see him take the job from Greg Dahl. You know, it's there for the taking. And you needed somebody that he can take the job from rather than just get handed to it right away. And so now you have the perfect culprit in, and a guy that used to play for the St. Louis Rams. And he was a so-so player. He seems like a smart guy. Seems like a decent player, but I don't think he's the future there at all.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect situation for Eric Reed. And like you mentioned, they brought in Dahl to be a guy that he will have to move past on the depth chart, so that it isn't in fact given to him, similar to the Alden Smith situation a couple years ago. And I think that once he gets back there, he is going to be that physical presence. And the thing I like about him is he's very rangy, and he's a guy that he won't get beat too much on deep plays. Every once in a while, he'll bite on the teaser routes, but I think that he's a very safe option, very much in the lines of like a Ryan Clark with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I definitely like him at the safety position, and I think he's going to solidify that defense.
Yeah, I think so too. But I mean, they still got other concerns back there, but they got to figure out if Tremaine Brock's ready to go as a number 3 corner, or where Namdi Asamoah fits in this, because Namdi, I think, had a really good camp. And I think Brock's doing pretty good too. Carlos Rogers has done really well. Because I came into camp a little down on him because I didn't think he had a great year last year, and it looks like he's doing all right. So, Terrell Brown's situation is just crazy with what he's had to go through in terms of the financial situation, losing $2 million, but it doesn't look like it's impacted his play because he looks like he's still playing pretty well. And he played some really, really tough receivers the last 2 seasons. The first couple of years as a full-time starter, I thought he held his own with that.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Terrell Brown. I think he's very consistent. And you mentioned Tremaine Brock, and a lot of people forget that before he hurt his hand a couple years ago, he was that number 3 corner, and Culliver, he just took over the spot, and he didn't relinquish it. And here we have the exact opposite. Now Culliver is injured, and here Brock is pressed into duty, and we'll see how that works out. Namdi is another situation that Fangio, he said yesterday he feels comfortable with Namdi working both sides, but it's more or less seemed like right, exactly, and that's the thing. It more or less seemed like his concern was whether or not Namdi feels comfortable working on the left side, and that's something that remains to be seen. He's worked primarily on the right side, but then also
here's what I think might be the most desirable situation out there if they can pull this off. You have Rogers stay at left cornerback. You have Namdi at right cornerback as the third. So Terrell Brown still starts at right corner, but when you need to bring in a third cornerback, you put Namdi at right corner and put Terrell Brown in the slot, which is we don't really know how well he can do there. Carlos really feels that you really need to be mentally strong to be able to play in the slot and know what you're doing. And I think Terrell Brown's a heady player. I want to see how he does in that exhibition season, because if you have those 3 corners out there, I think that's a lot more intimidating than bringing in Tremaine Brock, who's not as big. He's quick, but then again, I really don't put a lot of value on cornerbacks, because I think we're going to get to see all the time the way the NFL set up right now to push the pass game forward.
So it's all about the pass rush. You need the pass rush, and that'll make any secondary better. So, and then not to mention Terrell Brown, Fangio said that he'll be getting some reps. He'll start working next week at the slot position, and he mentioned that he's done it before. So there's so much flexibility, and as Fangio mentioned, you have to have your guys kind of cross-trained. So this way, if God forbid an injury should occur, you're not completely caught with your pants down. So I like the way that.
But you know what? But they're about 2 weeks in a training camp, and I haven't seen Namdi play anywhere but right corner. I haven't seen Terrell Brock in the slot. So I don't know what they're necessarily waiting for.
Yeah, I guess this injury kind of opened their eyes to what could happen. So, so tomorrow is going to be a good game. I'm interested to see how these corners go against the Broncos receivers. That's going to be interesting. I always like to see how these slot guys work out. You know, Wes Welker's going to be there, so I want to see how he works out against the defense. And you know, you have guys like Tavon Austin, you know, that they'll be facing during the season, so it'll be a nice gauge. And I'm definitely excited about the game tomorrow, and look forward to checking that out. All right, so
guys,
Cam,
it's been
we
nice talking
appreciate
to
you coming on. Yeah, great.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central radio network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Welcome back to Niner Talk Central. Dylan DeSimone, Bleacher Report, Turron, Davenport, Base Sportsnet. We're here with Jayson Braddock of Roto Experts. Jayson is a longtime friend, and wanted to welcome him to the show. What's going on, Jayson?
Not much, man. Getting ready for this season. Actually getting ready for this preseason with all the games kicking off tomorrow and going on through the weekends. A lot of football action coming this way.
Yeah, what's going on, Jayson? You said it right there, man. I'm with you on that.
Hey, yeah, it's good to be on with you, Turron. It's just a great time of year. I mean, it's obviously sad with all the news of all the injuries that's going on in this league and all that. And, you know, obviously that's a topic for another day, but you have to start to question, you know, is the new CBA, you know, really the victim behind here now? Because you've never seen this many torn ACLs before the first preseason week.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they're really mounting up. And San Fran has their own. I mean, that's probably one of the most injured teams in the league right now. So even more so to pay attention to the preseason games because guys are going to have legitimate shots to kind of step up and take jobs. From your perspective, is there anybody that you're interested in watching tomorrow versus the Broncos?
Yeah, there's a ton of guys. I mean, when you look at the game, obviously anybody who's been following me over the last couple of years, I've been all in on Colin Kaepernick since straight out the gate. Always knew he'd have a solid NFL career, but I think even though we're in the first early chapters of Colin Kaepernick's NFL career, I think you can already see the writing on the wall of what type of player he can be. With the nonsense of the offseason aside, when you're looking at what this guy does in between those white lines, I mean, he's a special type athlete. So with that being said, if I'm looking at some of the other guys on the roster that I'm really interested in, the first guy that's going to jump out to me is Ricardo Lockett. This is a guy a couple of years ago when him and Star Gene both went undrafted. I was surprised that they were out there in that undrafted crop of receivers, and I listed them as the two undrafted receivers out of all the wide receivers that wasn't selected that year. So Lockett hasn't been able to be out there in San Francisco camps. Only got to see him a little bit when he was with Seattle. So that's one guy I want to see how he developed. And I know him and Kaepernick are real familiar with each other. They spend a lot of time together. I want to see how he's developed over the last couple of years and see if he can be a guy that can step up and not be the man of that offense, but to play a pivotal part in it at least, that he can be relied upon.
Well, Jayson, it's interesting you mentioned Lockett because I saw yesterday's practice, and that just happened to be his best practice of camp. He was definitely a presence in that practice. He had 2 balls, actually 3 catches of over 25 yards. One, as we mentioned earlier in the show, it was a 30-yarder touchdown, and it was over Terrell Brown, so one of the starting corners. So he's definitely stepping up, and he can be that vertical threat. You make a really good point. That speed that he has is crazy, and he also has a really good bond with Kaepernick as they are housemates. So that's something else to definitely look at how that is developing. And, you know, he could come in and be that guy to stretch the field and push defenses back, and so that way guys like McDonald and Anquan Bolden could work underneath on the intermediate routes.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, with Lockett, you can't teach speed. You can't teach speed and size combination. I mean, so Lockett's got that. What he needed to prove on coming into the league is stuff that you can actually teach. So, I mean, as an undrafted player, even though San Francisco wasn't the one that he originally signed with, obviously he's a part of this rivalry between them and Seattle that's just got the whole nation behind it right now. But let's moving on to another receiver that you're talking about some of these young guys that who's going to step up. Quentin Patton, this was a guy that I like what he can do. I think he can have a role in an offense, but he was never a guy that I was as excited on as most of your media scouts, people out there evaluating talent, because what I watched him do at Louisiana Tech, and I got a guy I'm close with that actually threw to him at some of his workouts. All you saw him do was line up on that right side, run routes. I mean, if you take one route and cut it out for Patton, that deep post route he ran there, when you're getting him downfield, I mean, he ran it beautiful. He got separation. He could find the weak spots in the defense. So all that was well and good, but I'm watching play after play after play, and each one he's lined up on the right side. Now, once again, this is obviously something that you can coach and develop him into, but it was a huge question mark, and led me to slot him down my board, and I have to think that it led several other NFL teams to bump him down a little bit.
Yeah, with him, unfortunately, he has the injury to his middle finger, so he's not really getting to fully participate in camp. He has the blue shirt on, which is like a non-contact shirt or jersey that they wear, and he's running some of the routes, but he's not able to catch the ball. So it's unfortunate he's not getting to set his mark and possibly make a move to get some time, but he will in due time be a guy that's going to step up, and he could play the Z, he could play the slot. I actually like him a lot, but you are right, he didn't run the full route tree. He ran that post a lot. You look at that one against Illinois, he definitely dominated them, and he had a good game against A&M, of course, but you're on point with that one.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, so with Patton, it's a guy that I think he will factor into this offense, but I think it's not going to be a huge role in 2013. We all know how long it takes. Receivers, they learn at a different pace, and it's probably one of the hardest positions to adjust to from the college game to the NFL game. So you want to tend to give these guys 3 years. Some guys get it, catch on to it right there in the first year, build chemistry with their quarterbacks, and progress right off the gate. I don't think Patton will be one of those guys. Another reason, besides what we talked about, is what you mentioned about with some of the little nick scrapes and stuff that he suffered through down there in camp. I think that's going to hold him back. And the good thing about it is that you see these young rookies when they come in, and if there's ever anything good about an injury, it's the fact that it allows them to get in the playbook and learn multiple positions, like you said, in the slot and at the Z. So it makes them better brain-wise and mentally prepares them for the game.
Yeah, Jayson, that segues perfectly in a point I wanted to make, and about receivers kind of taking time to develop and find their niche in the offense and chemistry with a passer. Now, I love the scope of knowledge that you bring coming to, when it comes to fundamental aspect and scouting kids in college. Something that I found really intriguing looking back at both their college games was Colin Kaepernick in the WAC in Nevada and Kyle Williams at Arizona State, and what they both did very well, which was basically a spread offense and taking chunks out of the defense. But I wanted to get your perspective on if you see that actually evolving into this offense.
Well, yeah, with Kaepernick, you're looking at a guy. You have some of these quarterbacks that they start experimenting with the pistol zone beat offense just as a quirk. Not saying that Russell Wilson can't sit back there and run a traditional type offense, but when they looked at him, they realized it. It's the same thing you've seen with Drew Brees over the years. You like to get him off the line of scrimmage. You like to get him out there moving. And you like to get him to where there's a gap in a passing lane so he can see clearly through it. Because no matter what you say about a 6-foot quarterback, the fact of the matter and any way you slice it is that a 6-foot guy can't see over 6'5". You can't see around, and you can back up and get a better trajectory to see downfield. That's what Drew Brees has done great through his career. That's something Russell Wilson done great through his rookie year. Colin Kaepernick's a 6'5" guy with tremendous speed, a rocket arm, and he's accurate. When you look at this guy and what he does well, you're just looking down the list, and it's all check marks. You're checking off everything. And because of that skill set, his size, his speed, and intangibles that you can't mentor and you can't develop into a player, Russell Wilson won't ever be 6'5". You can't say that. Kaepernick has that aspect. He can go in the center. He can stay in the pistol. He can get back in shotgun. There's so many different things you can do. And sometimes the 49ers take a knock because they have a draft class where their players don't get on the field instantly. But I don't believe that's a knock. When you look at the top caliber teams, that means they have depth. And I know I'm jumping ahead here, guys, to some different subjects y'all not asking about, but as an outsider, and what I mean by that, somebody who's not based in San Francisco or doesn't cover the team solely 24/7, you look at depth on NFL rosters, and the thing that jumps out to you with San Francisco is that defensive line. You can go 3 deep on that defensive line, and while they may not be starters at this point, there's something in them that Harbaugh and this team sees in them that these guys, Lawrence Okoye, Quentin Dow, Tony Girard-Eddy, when these guys get healthy and they've got 2 to 3 years experience under their belt, they're ready to step right up next in line. NFL teams that get it, and they have a solid base of teams, they understand what makes the difference in the NFL and what makes perennial winners is matchup problems and depth. And San Francisco has both of those.
You know, you make an excellent point, and here's an example of that. You got Ian Williams, a guy who was a practice squad player 2 years ago. Last year, he wasn't practice squad, but he wasn't active on the roster. He wasn't on the active roster as far as like on game day often. Now you come into camp, and he's probably going to start on that D-line. And then not to mention that, I talked to Justin Smith today, and he says that actually his quickness and his ability, along with some new things with their schemes, is going to allow them to do a lot more things. So that's a perfect example. You have a guy that's just sitting on the roster. And then also you got Parrish Harrison. Justin Smith in the press conference today said, Parrish, he starts on most teams. And having a guy like him is excellent for depth. So there's your case in point right there.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you're talking about Ian Williams, the bust. I say that tongue-in-cheek because just because he didn't see the field 2 years ago and that he didn't factor in last year, you get these people that just come out and say, he never turned out to what we thought he would be in the NFL. He hasn't even started his 3rd season yet. But you don't need to expect NFL rosters to be like Major League Baseball where they have a minor league and work up. But in your mindset, fans have to realize that there is still that type of essence to a roster, that there isn't a minor league to develop. Some people call college football that, but it's not. You're not playing with other professionals. So Ian Williams got in there. He's got 2 years experience on one of the best defense in the NFL. He's got an explosive offense where he faced a traditional quarterback in Alex Smith, a zone pistol quarterback in Colin Kaepernick. He's facing power backs like Frank Gore, speed backs like Michael James, one of the a prototypical tight end that most teams wish their guy had that type of skill set in Vernon Davis, and a guy he's watched progress in Michael Crabtree over the years. When you're on defense, playing with that defense for the last 2 years and playing against that offense for the last 2 years, it molds you. Well, you know the saying, iron sharpens iron, and I think the 49ers have sharpened up Ian Williams to where you will see a drastically different guy in 2013.
There you go.
Now, just expanding on this whole theory of how much depth they have, I wanted to say 2 things. First being, well, you can answer after, is basically, do you think they had a crazy head start by losing all those years and stockpiling first-round picks that are now kind of evolved into starters? And the second thing being about they've kind of manifested an in-house farm system because of that, where they can kind of mentor these players, and you have guys with like a lot of potential, like you said, Lawrence Okoye and Marcus Cooper. What kind of players are you seeing like that this year? Players like maybe Corey Lemonois or Marcus Cooper.
Yeah, I was a big guy on Corey Lenoir. This is a guy that, and obviously Tank Carradine, the guy that when he gets healthy, you've seen the potential he has. I think Glenn Dorsey is now in a system that's going to be beneficial for him. And I think the 49ers, when they signed Dorsey, they had envisioned in mind that a guy that is going to come in behind Justin Smith, watch how he works, see the professionalism on that defense and what's around him. And I think whatever it was that was lacking in Kansas City, and they had a good defense, but whatever it was, you didn't see a lot of tremendous depth and increase of talent on naturally talented guys like Glenn Dorsey and Tyson Jackson's put together a pretty good career. But these guys, what they did was just natural growth. I don't think you had the mentoring and the coaches down there in the trenches on the defensive front there in Kansas City that he'll actually get with that roster in San Francisco. So what plays a big part of this is that, like you talked about, Dylan, that they brought in this farm system in here. They've had the talent. They've had the guys on the front line that made this team a winner after building up that depth. And then they work the game. They work the game perfectly. And what I'm talking about the game is the NFL draft. They worked it to where they had all these draft picks, and they can take those risk picks. They can go out there and get a Tank, and they can go get a Marcus Lattimore, and they on these guys for a couple of years because they built the team the right way.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the head start, Dylan, that they had. And, I mean, here's the thing. They're not the only team to have ever had a whole lot of draft picks. It's just that they have, for whatever reason, Scott McCloughan, Trent Baalke, they've been able to get the right guys. I mean, outside of Kentuan Balmer and maybe, Rashawn Woods, I mean, there haven't been too many busts
but
over the last.
High first rounders when you look at it. High first
Right.
rounders. It makes
But
a big difference.
They're hitting on them. You look at Alden Smith. Everybody made fun of the 49ers for taking this project guy that never stood up, and he always had his hand in the dirt at Missouri, and look at what he is now. And then you mentioned, you look at, Patrick Willis is another one. Right on point with getting him. I mean, how many guys you could name, guy after guy, that has come in as a first-round pick? Joe Staley in that same draft. I mean, you could just keep going. And this team has drafted well, and they found the right players, and it's just now they have the coach that can make everything happen. And the culture here in the stadium, on the franchise, the facility is different, and you could feel it, man. Just sitting here, you could feel the winning attitude, and just looking around. Coach Harbaugh, he mentioned about how as coaches, everything they want, they've gotten. They asked for a weight room, they got it. Just recently, they asked for a new scoreboard. Guess what popped up yesterday? A new scoreboard. So they could do down and distance and time of the game. They had the clock running in the 2-minute drill that they ran. And every play, they had the down and distance throughout practice. And it's just, this is a winning place. And a lot of credit has to be given to this front office for the job that they've done and how well they've done with the picks that they've had. They've made the most of it. I mean, you look at teams that are constantly at the bottom of the NFL, and they don't draft well. That's really what it comes down to. They don't draft well. They're given the opportunity to get players, but they're not bringing the right guys in.
Not everyone gathers from Baalke.
You compare it to New England, and how New England had all those picks for a couple of years, and they had a winning team. That's what San Francisco's in right now. But the reason that San Francisco can get better, and the reason they can win a better bulk of win more Super Bowls and stuff, and I'm talking about the span where after this scandal in New England, the reason the 49ers can actually win these championships is because they are drafting right. They're going out there. It's not that you just have quantity, but you also have quality, and I think that's what makes it a difference, and that's what can make this team, and even Colin Kaepernick being the right-hand man for Harbaugh, can make this team special.
Yeah, and it's the offense. Now, Jayson, I wanted to ask you, going forward, what do you project that this offense looks like with LaMichael James, Kendall Hunter, Marcus Lattimore, and Colin Kaepernick, and that offensive line?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. When we talked about depth on everything, obviously the position that just jumps out to you, just embarrassing wealth at a position, is the running backs. You have all those guys you mentioned. You also got a guy that I actually like coming out of college, DJ Harper. I don't think he's a throwaway. People are just not going to hear his name a lot in the national media because you have the Frank Gore, the Hunter, the Michael James, the Lattimore, the Dixon, even Joe Hampton. Joe Hampton was off to a pretty solid college career before the injury started plaguing them, if he could stay healthy. So it's just an embarrassment of riches of what they got out the backfield. Now, we talked about so much on depth, and y'all are out there more, so y'all can see a lot of the backup offensive linemen. But if there's a weakness and if there is a concern on the San Francisco team, it would be some of these number ones on that offensive line going down. I don't think they have the right guys in place that can just step up and not miss a beat. And I'm not saying that these are horrible players. I'm not saying you don't have great backup tackles or guards or centers and on down the line. I'm just saying, as talented as that offensive line is and how this offense has almost been spoiled by how great that offensive line is, that if one or two of those guys go down with this rash of injuries that's just sweeping through the NFL, if they hit that offensive line, I think that could be the pressure point that erupts something in the San Francisco, this San Francisco scheme and how well they're built.
And I agree with you on that because I tell you what, I talked about the blue shirt earlier. Well, Jonathan Goodwin has one on too, and I haven't seen Upati come out and practice either. So they're definitely making sure that they safeguard that offensive line. Anthony Davis is a guy that I really like, and he'll be okay. He did practice yesterday. Joe Staley practiced some, but you got your guys, Adam Snyder. He's taking a lot of snaps at tackle and guard. He's somebody that they're using. Kilgore is also taking some snaps. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, and the value is on the offensive line. That line is, in fact, in my opinion, the best in football. And I think they know that, and that's the foundation, the cornerstone of this offense, running the ball. So they definitely have to keep them in order.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, because they're keeping Colin Kaepernick upright, which is the important thing. But really excited to kind of see what he does, especially with all the new weapons on offense, and what the future kind of holds for him as an all-purpose weapon when you look at it.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jayson, we've talked on Twitter a few times about a certain guy that you guys got down there at Texans camp, and he was my number one safety coming out. They call him the Jungle Boy. That's DJ Swearinger, and I noticed that you and a lot of the other guys down there in Houston have been really excited about him. And tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from him.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of rookies come and go over the last couple of years, not just in Texas camps, but in other camps. And this guy, he's a different type animal. What I mean by that is when you have, this is a veteran secondary here. You got Daniel Manning, Jonathan Joseph, even Kareem Jackson has been molded into one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Now you're bringing Ed Reed. So when you go talk to this veteran secondary and they tell you something like, what sticks out to you about DJ Swearinger? And a Daniel Mannion comes back to you is his leadership. Is the first thing off of his lips? It's surprising to you. But then you watch him, it shouldn't surprise you. He has that same fire and that same passion for the game that you see at J.J. Watt on the defensive line, the same passion that Brian Cushing has at the linebacker core. And now you add that into the secondary with those veterans, some of those older guys. You have to be excited, not as a Texans fan, but as a fan of the NFL. You have to be excited of what this team can look like on defense if they all can stay healthy.
Yeah, the thing is with Swearinger, the leadership, there's intangibles with him. And that was the thing I would try to bring up when people would tell me, Kenny Vaccaro was the sexy pick, is the best safety. Oh, hands down, he could do this, he could do. Listen, everything that Vaccaro can do, Swearinger can do. But here's the thing. Swearinger brings the leadership. He brings that fire. He brings the playmaking ability. If you go back and you watch both of their cut-ups or watch both of their games, you'll see a lot more big plays from DJ Swearinger. And I'm talking about impactful plays. I mean, you got when he hit Andre Ellington. Yeah, he got a flag for that, but you know what? That's establishing a physical presence. You look at when he I forget who they were against, but there was the ball came out and he caught it from the quarterback and returned it for a touchdown. Yet again, he was fine. He threw the ball into the stands. But I mean, just got a passion that you get from him that it doesn't always come from other players. And you look at that South Carolina team, you know, they over time have had some really good players on that team. And you look who's been the leadership, the captain of that team for the last 2 years. And I'm talking about with Clowney on that team. DJ Swearinger is the team captain. He's the one that they surround in the beginning of the game before they go out. He's the one that leads them on the field, not Clowney, not Chris Culliver when he was there, or Stephon Gilmore when he was there. It was all about DJ Swearinger. You look at his versatility. He's a guy that could come up and cover the slot. I mean, I was really big on him. Disappointed that the 49ers didn't draft him. He actually was disappointed himself. I spoke to him about that. And I got to interview him, and you're right, man. That energy, that passion, it comes right there. I interviewed him over the phone, and it just came through the phone. And you're just like, wow, this is somebody who really loves the game and is a throwback type of player that will play hard on every snap from whistle to whistle.
Yeah, that's the thing with Swearinger. I mean, you watch him, and I didn't have him as a first-round talent. I felt as a guy that could be there at the bottom part of the second round or maybe early third. It's hard when you grade that emotion, unless you're around it or if you catch the clips of the video of where you actually see it expressed like you did, Ron. It's hard to put a grade on that because there's been fiery people that's come out before that wasn't leaders. They were false bravado. But there's nothing about Swearinger that's false bravado. It's all, I love this game. I'm going to give tooth and nail. I'm going to fight tooth and nail for every inch of this. And that's what he understands. Those players on defense that understand it's not about I can't give up a yard. It's about I got to stop every inch of this. And that's what Swearinger understands at such a young age. And when I watched him on tape, I felt like he wasn't a guy that can drop back and play sideline to sideline. But he doesn't have to do that in the Texans scheme here. You have Ed Reed, you have Danielle Manning. You can take them down into the box, and the one word that you hear out of whether it's Wade Phillips or Vance Joseph, the D-back coach, or whether it's just any of the players that are around Swearinger, is instincts. They say this guy plays with unbelievable instincts for a guy who's only been in camp for a couple weeks, not counting OTAs. And that's what you see. He undercuts it. He understands angles. And when you ask Vance Joseph, what is he most excited about for the Houston Texans fans to see out of DJ Swearinger, he says his football IQ, and that's what you see jump out. He understands angles, he understands the physicality of the game, and that's what the NFL audience will become a privilege still watching this year.
Yeah, I'm big on him. I'm big. I don't know. Did you catch his YouTube video of his footwork?
No, I didn't catch it on Swearinger.
You got to check that out. He does the ladder drill, right? But the guy does it under a trampoline. He's a monster. He's a monster, man. he's a monster. I'm very big on Swearinger. I can't wait for that game where the 49ers and Texans play. That's gonna be one to watch.
I'm happy that he has a chance to learn from one of the greatest to ever do it in Ed Reed, who, that I really wanted to come to San Francisco this offseason. But I'm also glad he's playing with Andre Johnson again.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. You bring those boys back from the U, they have a fraternity of former players that when they get around each other, it's almost like the youthfulness comes back. There's a lot of questions about Andre Johnson's age. There's a lot of questions about Ed Reed's age. And you look at these guys, 32 and 34 right now, if I'm not mistaken, and then you watch them on the field, they carry themselves as vets. But when you watch them get around the huddles, when the camera's not on and the pictures aren't flashing, you just watch them interacting. They're 5 years younger in that moment because they reunited with close friends from the U. And I think you see a rejuvenation hit both of them this year. Not acting like they've fallen off last year. Last year, Andre Johnson was second receiver, but I think you see more excitement and more youthfulness come to these guys this season.
Yeah. You talk about guys from the U, man. There's a guy out here by the name of Frank Gore that's definitely still going, and he worked out a lot yesterday with he actually ran a lot of scout team offense. And I'm excited about Frank Gore coming in. He's somebody that is without a doubt one of the top running backs in the game, most complete running backs with his blitz pickup ability. And you talk about passion. Here's another one where the passion just shows. And I'm really big on Frank Gore, one of my favorite guys on this team. So there's another guy from the U.
Yeah, Frank Gore's been doing it a long time. He's been successful. I know you're going to have some guys or some of the bandwagon, no matter what team it is, whether it's in San Francisco, Houston, or if it's in New York. I mean, it doesn't matter. When a team starts winning, the bandwagon fans come back and all that. So you'll probably see some of these younger fans to the 49ers start seeing them want to push Frank Gore out there because you have young, exciting guys behind them. And truth be told, it is a young man game at that position. But when you have somebody who's a special type player at a position, you don't push him out. Now, by all means, if he starts falling off and that average starts dipping down to 3.8, 3.7 yards per carry, and he's not getting it done, and in that offense, Kendall Hunter or LaMichael James and all of them are more explosive, then of course you're going to start changing that workload based on production. But until you see that, you don't factor in a change in the offense that doesn't have Frank Gore included in it.
Yeah, that's truth right there. That's definitely true.
Who's also been evolving to the read option that they've installed, and he's kind of taken to it more this year. Jayson, before we let you go, I'd love to ask you what you think of the read option package that particularly features Colin Kaepernick and LaMichael James.
Yeah, that's something I was talking about last year. When Colin Kaepernick finally started getting some reps on the side, he wasn't the starter yet. He didn't take over for Alex Smith. When he was just coming in and doing some things, I said, this offense could be special if they start giving LaMichael James some more carries and they start factoring him in on some of those zone read option plays, whether it's in pistol or not. Just start biting it in, because when you look at what Geno Smith did at West Virginia, and I was never a big Geno Smith guy, because what they did with him, they did a lot of that zone read where they made the defense hesitate for just 1 second. And with LaMichael James and with Tavon Austin, if you hesitate for 1 second, it's too late. The window's there. So whether you hesitate and LaMichael James gets the ball, he's going to have a hole, he's going to have a crease, and it's going to be hard to catch. Even though this ain't college anymore, he still has elite speed for the NFL game. Same thing. If you bite too hard and you don't keep your discipline on that back end, then Colin Kaepernick's going to get the edge. At 6'5" and running a 4.5 40, this guy can get that edge. It's a dangerous fit. And if you bite too much and then you try to show too much against those two, then they have the weapons out there, the veterans and some young guys that can make the defense fight for that 1 second hesitation.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown, and I'm actually curious if you think it's more effective in the red zone, and how much is it going to be effective in the red zone this year?
Well, what makes it so effective in the red zone or anywhere on the field is the fact that Colin Kaepernick doesn't have to be, a pistol quarterback. He doesn't have to be a zone read quarterback. That's an element that just makes him more dangerous. There was this change that when Michael Vick came up, everyone said this is the prototype. This is the wave of the future. And because those quarterbacks didn't come up and elevate their game within the next 2-3 years, people thought it was a dying trend. But they have to understand, these kids who were young playing peewee football, they were looking up to Michael Vick, and they were like, well, geez, I want to throw a pass. I want to throw a pass like a Peyton Manning, but I want to have the mobility of a Michael Vick. That's why you're seeing these guys like RG3, Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, that have the ability to run, but they still can stand there in the pocket and beat you, and that's what makes it so effective, where it wasn't as effective 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's it's a new breed. I mean, you've seen the ages of quarterbacks over time, so it's really been an evolution, a gradual evolution. I like the comparisons you made with Manning and Vick. I had one of my own. It was the fact that that Colin Kaepernick is what Randall Cunningham was always supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. And when he actually came out in that draft, that's who I compared him to. I said he's Randall Cunningham 2.0. So, I mean, we're definitely seeing the same thing there. Cunningham, he had that, that tall, lanky frame, and he could beat you with that mobility. He could stand up, and he had the balance. But he just, for whatever reason, didn't put the total package together throughout his career. And this was a guy who was a quality quarterback, but Colin Kaepernick is that 2.0, and polished off those edges.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really exciting to see where this goes. Jayson, we've had you for a while. We want to thank you for your time. It's been great talking to you and catching up. I did want to point out that you had, in fact, told me at the draft when we met that you had Colin Kaepernick higher on your board than RG3. Can you verify that?
Oh, well, then Cam Newton. Yeah, I mean, in that
Cam
draft
Newton.
back in that draft, I took a lot of criticism because everyone was on this Blaine Gabbert, Cam Newton. I said I wouldn't touch Blaine Gabbert in the. I said I wouldn't touch Blaine Gabbert in that first round, and I'd be hard-pressed to touch him in the second round. As far as Cam, there's a guy I like better. I think he could have a better pro career. I like his accuracy better, his arm strength, everything about Colin Kaepernick I like right off the bat. And I said I would take Colin Kaepernick, the first quarterback in that class, over Cam Newton. And, obviously you hear the people that don't know my background, and you hear the mockery and all that. But everything gets shown in time. You can't write the book or close the book on a player after 1 or 2 years. We were talking about Ian Williams earlier. I think this guy can still develop. So give it a couple of years, let it play out, and then you'll actually start seeing the cream rise to the crop.
And Jayson, I love the passion, man, that you bring, and it was great talking to you, man. I love when I could talk to somebody that has the same passion about the league as I do. And, hey, man, I give you definitely a lot of credit on the Kaepernick prediction. I didn't have him ranked above Cam, but he was my number 2 guy, and I predicted the 49ers would trade up to get him, so we definitely share that in common. Greg Cosell was another guy, so hey, man, you know your stuff, and everybody listening, you need to follow this guy because he definitely brings it when it comes to football knowledge.
Guys, I appreciate y'all having me on. Enjoyed the game. You talked about Denver versus San Francisco. A lot of people forget it was Denver who gave up that pick when they had Tebow and let San Francisco come up and get Kaepernick. So there'll always be that link between those two teams.
Gotta love it, man.
Good job. Thanks, Jayson.
All right, take care.
Hey guys, welcome back to Niner Talk Central. I'm here with Turron Davenport. We just wrapped up with Jayson Braddock. What'd you think, man?
Yo, let me tell you something. I come away very impressed with his knowledge. I like how he was able to speak about not only the obvious guys, but some of the guys that a lot of people aren't really looking at. He mentioned Joe Hampton. That alone impressed me. Braddock, he brings it, and it was great having him on the show. I definitely want to have him on again. And Cam was great, too. Always like having that insider's perspective. And this was a great show, man.
Yeah, I think we came away with a lot, and I'm interested to take away the information that we got and see how it reflects over the preseason games and the exhibition, and hopefully we'll have more for you guys next week.
Yes, sir. So we got the game tomorrow, so that'll be great. Get to see our guys go up against the Broncos. Harbaugh is definitely looking for somebody to step up and take a spot, so let's see who it is.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.